Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are One Mountain, Many Paths, where our mission is what Barbara Marx Hubbard and Dr. Marc Gafni call the planetary awakening in love through a unique self-symphony. Together, we declare that the last day of the old phase of evolution is honored as the first day of the new phase of creation. I am Christina Tehel, the co-executive producer, along with Krista Josefa, and we are delighted to be with you today in week 247 of our live broadcast. Use the chat function to say hi, to let us know where you're from, and to resonate the Dharma. On Zoom, make sure to check that your chat settings say all panelists and attendees, and not just all panelists. In One Mountain, Many Paths, we are connected, we are whole, and we are expressions of the entire process of creation. We are activating a new humanity, and we are awakening as a new species, Homo Amor, the fulfillment of Homo sapiens. We weave together the knowledge and wisdom from religion, spirituality, and science to articulate a global ethos for a global civilization. Welcome home, everyone. We are strengthening this evolutionary we space. For instance, come dance with us next month at the fabulous upcoming Summer Festival of Love, which we will hear more about at the end of the broadcast from Shahat Kortan. Study in Holy of Holies, study one of the Dharmic courses with a group, read the books, and fully step into this revolutionary field of language. We welcome friends of Barbara Marx Hubbard. We are ever more grateful to honor Barbara and her joining genius with Dr. Marc Gafni. Do check out the new Barbara Marx Hubbard course called Gateway to Conscious Evolution. The link is now in the Zoom chat box. Like our Facebook page at facebook.com/One Mountain Many Paths, and be inspired by the great clips and member activities. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at One Mountain Many Paths and share our clips with your communities. We are streaming live right now on YouTube and Facebook. If you are on one of those platforms listening, you could also join us on Zoom. If you are on Zoom, copy either of the links from this Zoom chat box and share on your favorite social media channels. With that, I give you what to expect today. We begin with a Dharma recap from last week, and afterwards, Dr. Marc sets our intention, and then David resonates the evolutionary love code. We move into prayer, then evolutionary sermons with Dr. Marc, and often with a piece from Barbara Marx Hubbard. And then Krista invites us to commit our outrageous acts of love, to contribute our gifts to this revolution, to step into membership, leadership, and to play our unique instrument in this unique self-symphony. Marc wrote what he called evolutionary love codes. Marc and Barbara studied the codes together, often comparing them to Barbara's own 52 codes for conscious self-evolution. These codes grow out of their radical commitment over 100 collective years, crystallizing the new story of humanity, quote, evolving the course of consciousness and culture, which is the source code of love, unquote. Each communion is a standalone and each week's communion builds on the week before. One Mountain, Many Paths is radically committed to telling the new universe story. Now, for our Dharma recap from last week. Desire, need, and evolution. We are the voice of the future, seen with God's eyes, the path and practice of evolutionary love. For much of human history, immediate challenges were the most important and productive thing to do. So evolution focused us on these types of challenges. Now we look towards the second shock of existence, or the realization that after all the stages of evolution, we've developed an exponential set of technologies that pose life on Earth, genuine, real, high-risk challenges. These high-risk technologies are divorced from interior truth. Those who are calling out the risk factors almost always have their voices drowned for short-term opportunities driven by pseudo-eros and divorced and dissociated from the larger eros of reality. There is a huge gap between interior and exterior technologies, between genuine social, spiritual technologies and a runaway techplex poised between utopia and dystopia. We want to turn away. The hardest thing to do is to not turn away. There's got to be a shift that can only be caused by a shift in evolutionary thinking towards evolutionary love, a democratization of greatness. The future turns to us. The past and the future is focused on these decades, on this period of time, on us. We are the voice of 1 trillion generations of human beings. For whatever reason, a set of circumstances in our life or the intention of reality, we are called to take a seat at the table of history. We allow ourselves to go with God through quarks, being attracted to quarks, electrons to electrons, protons, and cells. We feel the allurement as the center and source of the multi-billion years of the Big Bang. To be able to see the connections, to not dissociate from the whole, and to know that the whole lives in us and the whole needs us. To be a lover, to be an evolutionary communion, to open our eyes and perceive love as a perception. Love drives the evolutionary process. That same love that caused subatomic particles to come together into atoms and atoms into molecules and molecules into macromolecules. That love lives in us. That love is the same love all the way up and all the way down. We don't exist independently of the force of love itself. The world is filled with outrageous beauty, and the world turns to us and says, protect me. The future turns to us and says, hold me, love me madly, see me. The evolutionary lover sees with God's eyes, steps out of narrow perspectives, takes an evolutionary perspective. The divine is more personal than anything. To love is to see the future in front of us. With that, I invite us to more deeply enter into the holy and sacred space of One Mountain, Many Paths, And I turn my word to you, beloved Dr. Marc Gafni.
Thank you very, very, very much, Christina Tahel. Happy 4th of July for those of you in the United States, and happy 4th of July for everybody around the world, right? And happy freedom. Happy freedom. What a day, right? Like, what an incredible day. And there's so much happening in the world, and there's so much joy. And I want to say that there's billions of times more people committing acts of goodness now than there are people committing acts which are not good, which are contracted, which are ego-driven, which are causing of pain in egregious ways. So I want to first just celebrate the good, because we've structured our society to celebrate destruction. If it bleeds, it leads. News is an entertainment business. It's been that way for several decades. And news is driven by ratings. And then news got translated into the internet, in which everything's driven by clickbait and the hijacking of attention. And we all know that attention's more instantly focused by negativity, by jealousy, by fear. So naturally, the structure of our noosphere, of our interconnected global nervous system, is actually militating towards the depths of fear and contraction and the lowest common denominator of humans acting and interacting. That's a tragedy. It's a tragedy that doesn't lead to freedom. And it's a tragedy that doesn't lead, right, to the celebration, right, of democracy. So we're in a complicated day. We're in a day in which the United States, which has been a lead democracy in the world, is here to celebrate freedom. And yet, it's not easy to celebrate freedom. And yet, things have changed. And yet, we're living in a different world than the world of the founding fathers. So what does it actually mean today to celebrate freedom? On the one hand, we've got to refocus on the good, the true, and the beautiful, and celebrate the gorgeousness that human beings are doing across the planet, at the outrageous love that's unfolding in billions of interactions across the planet, which is not happening in the digitized environment, right, that militates towards attention hijacking for the sake of using addiction strategies to create long-term customers in order to feed, right, a tiny elite, right, of the billionaire class, right, ignoring, right, the larger good, right, of all of the end users, because in fact, the end user of the internet are not end users. They're actually instruments, objects who are fed into machine intelligence to garner data and personality profile that's then sold to third-party customers, which is the structure of the internet. So the structure of the internet's not the town hall, right, that the founding fathers were thinking about. It's not the township, right? It's not the citizens that know each other. We're actually in a new world, and we need to think deeply about this new world. So here's our intention. Let's revision freedom, right? Let's revision what we mean by independence. Let's declare not just a Declaration of Independence, but a Declaration of Interdependence. Let's understand what it means to actually recreate freedom in the digital age. Let's understand how we actually avoid the existential risk of digital dictatorship and what my friend Zach Stein and I, my colleague, are calling techno-feudalism, and actually move towards, right, a true freedom, the freedom of interdependence, the freedom of actually being my deepest expression of authenticity and unique authenticity, the freedom of radical ecstatic joy, the freedom of loving each other, right? And caring in the most deep and poignant and powerful way for each other, and staking our lives for each other, and looking in each other's eyes and being actually face to face and re-engaging friendship the way it needs to be. What would it mean to revision what democracy means? What would it mean to receive the baton today from the founding fathers who left out the founding mothers, and be actually today the founding fathers and mothers, and actually revision? Because that's what the founding fathers did. The founding fathers were highly educated. They had read most of the books available in their day, and they tried to think forward. They tried not just to solve the local issues, but to actually revision what it would mean to create a reality that was good, true, and beautiful. The founding fathers were a great evolution of love in a thousand different ways, and they were wildly important. But now we've got to pick up the baton. Now the world we live in is fundamentally different from the world that they visioned. So we have to receive the best and the most beautiful that they offered us, but we actually have to take it the next level. It's not enough to have a Declaration of Independence. It's not enough that all human beings are created equal. We need to go the next step, and to go the next step further. So let's find each other. Can we find each other in the chat box? Is that okay? Let's find each other. Let's see if I can find my chat box. Where is it? Right? And let's see if we can actually commit, right, to play a larger game in a particular way that we actually never have before. And what is that? Let's revision democracy today. Let's revision, right, what it means to be a human being. So let me just ask you a question. Are you ready? Right? Joycey, are you ready? Right? To actually play a larger game? Are we ready to re-include everyone who was left out of the original democratic vision? Are we ready to address and be the founding fathers and the founding mothers today, and actually vision again, right? And write the new documents anew, and reclaim freedom, and reclaim independence, and reclaim interdependence, and actually take responsibility to actually evolve the source code? Are we ready? Are we ready to do what the founding fathers did as the founding fathers and mothers, and participate together in the evolution of love? Because that's what the 4th of July is, right? That's the explosion. That's the fireworks of today, that we actually step in, right, into our digitized world, into our world that doesn't have town halls, and we recreate friendship, and we recreate town halls, but at a different level of consciousness, right? In a new way, in a way that meets the reality of today, right? Which is wholly different than the reality of the founding fathers. So are you ready? Can we love that much? Can we be that audacious? Can we be that tender? Can we be that fierce together, right? Are we ready to do this, right? For real, fierce and tender, all the way, taking responsibility for the revisioning of the story, right? To tell this new story together. Okay, so here we go. Here we go. So let's bring some Amor in, and then we're going to read the code, and then we're going to step into prayer, and then we're going to do a big conversation, a huge liberation 4th of July conversation. Okay, so let's go into Amor. Let's just feel Amor. And Amor is love, but Amor is not ordinary love. Anyone who's been here before, right? Amor is outrageous love. And we've got our Dutch gang. We've got our Dutch gang who are celebrating with us freedom. And let's go into Amor. But by Amor, we mean we live in a world of outrageous pain. The only response, right, is outrageous love. And outrageous love is not ordinary love. Outrageous love is the love that moves the heart of existence itself, that comes awake and alive in me. And that reality is going to have to be incorporated into our new vision of democracy and our new vision of self. So, oh my God, Barbara Marx Hubbard, this day was unbelievably important to you. We talked about it a lot. And you and I wrote together the code of today, which we're going to hear from David just about. Let's go in, Dutch gang, take us into Amor. Let's do this like we've never done it before. Here we go.
Amor, 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 amor.
David, your insides are lined with love. Take us inside to this code. You're on the outside. He's on the outside in the wilderness. So from the place of the wilderness, take us inside and give us this code a couple of times carefully and just blow us away so we can we're revisioning democracy today, right? We're picking up from the founding fathers and the founding mothers. This is a big moment. David, take us into the code, brother.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mark. So good to be here with you, everyone. Welcome here surrounded by the redwoods, feeling nature as I'm connected to it. It's so good to be able to step back from this contraction-based culture, as Mark was telling us, and actually feel into how we're all interconnected. And this is the best way I know how. But of course, I'm also interconnected with you all here on the noosphere. So friends, let's find however we can step into this place of interconnectedness within ourselves, whether it's in nature, with friends, whatever it might be. So here's the code. We need a new Declaration of Independence together with a new Declaration of Interdependence. Not only are all human beings created equal, all human beings are born creative, and all human beings are irreducibly unique. In that precise sense, the unique creativity of every human being for her own sake and for the sake of the whole is the purpose and joy of a human life. This realization moves us from the democratization of governance to the democratization of enlightenment. And with that, the light pouring down, I turn my word back to you, beloved Dr. Mark. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, David. Okay, who's with us? So usually at this moment, right, there's a usual way we do things. We actually move into prayer, and then we move into going deep into the code, right? Everybody with us? So with permission, we're going to change the order today, right? We're going to actually move into this code, and then we're going to offer up whatever study we do. We're going to offer it up in prayer, and we're going to ask, the universe that moves in us and lives in us, right? The infinity of intimacy that brings us together, right? To actually hold and partner with us, right? And actually creating this new world, because we can't do it ourselves. We can't do it ourselves. We need the partnership, right? We participate in Cosmos. Cosmos participates in us. We participate in God, and God participates in us. We're holding hands. So we're going to dive in, okay? And this week, particularly, we knew it was 4th of July, and I know a lot of people are away. So I thought we'd have a kind of intimate crowd, and we'd be able to actually really kind of dive deep. And I want to try and just relax with you and just unfold things kind of step by step. Who's up for that? Let's just kind of think and feel together. Okay, we got the code in front of us. Who's up? Who's up? Who's in? Who's in? Let's go in the chat box. Are you in? Right? Let's gonna go from passive to active. Are you in? Who's in? Who's in? Who's in to kind of play all the way? I'm going to try and say something new. I just saw Timothy Aryeh said he's in. Happy birthday, Timothy Aryeh. Happy birthday. Who's in? We in? Who else is in? Anybody else? All right, find your way to the chat box, right? Just if you're in, just kind of like, I'm in. When I say I'm in, when I write I'm in, something happens, right? Right? We're in. We're in all the way. Okay, we're in. Anybody else? In? Anybody else? Anybody else? Okay, fantastic. Okay, so here we go. Let's try and do this slowly. So take this step at a time. So the founding fathers step into a world in which there is shared value. There's a shared sense of the good, the true, and the beautiful. Now, that shared value was in some deep sense drawn from the great traditions. It was drawn from the traditional period. It was drawn from pre-modernity. And the great traditions had a lot of things wrong with them, right? They had an enormous amount of corruption, but they also had insight. They also had practice. They also had realization. And there was a sense in which Modernity, right after pre-modernity, modernity drew from the great traditions a kind of shared sense of value. Now, not all of modernity did that, right? There were major strains in modernity that actually believed that actually there was no intrinsic value in cosmos, but no one really made that the center of the conversation. So even the people who believe that, like David Hume and later other major thinkers who would at the end give birth to postmodernity, no one quite said it that way. And there were other important thinkers like Adam Smith, who talked about the invisible hand of the market, and Comenius, right? And other major thinkers who actually believed that there was intrinsic value. And we actually received from the great traditions the sense of intrinsic value, but we tried to up-level it beyond the kind of ethnocentric claims of pre-modernity. You know, pre-modernity is saying it's my God and it's my religion and I kind of own God, and no one else's God is actually real, and God's outside of reality and not inside of reality. And I'm kind of a small, paltry human being, and my only job is to be obedient. So those notions of pre-modernity, modernity realized were limited, and modernity tried to extract a set of universal values from pre-modernity. And the founding fathers lived in that world, right? They understood that. And what they understood was, well, if we have the sense of universal values that we all share, then what we can do is we can actually do sense making together. We can make sense of the world together. And we can actually educate a citizenry to actually do sense making and to make decisions. We can have voters, and we can trust our voters because our voters are going to be well versed, right, in these values that live inside of them. And they're going to be educated, and they're going to participate and become the holders of the power of government. It's government for the people, by the people. That was the founding fathers. That was their view. And Thomas Jefferson writes in a number of places that only, in quotations, the people themselves are the safe depository for the ultimate powers of society. Right? That we can't trust government by itself. We can't trust corporations. We can't trust kings. Only the people themselves. And famously, when Benjamin Franklin is asked after the Constitutional Convention in the United States, what kind of government was produced, he famously answers, right, we produced a republic if you can keep it. And a republic means a democracy, right, as we know it, but if you can keep it. Can we actually keep that democracy? It was Jefferson who said, right, if I could have a perfect newspaper and a broken government, or a perfect government and a broken newspaper, I would take the perfect newspaper. Because what Jefferson meant was people need information. They need to be able to do sense making. And if they can do sense making, they can fix the government, right? They can correct the mistakes, right? They can claim power in the citizenry, right? Government again, right? For the people, by the people. George Washington, right, understood this very well. He said the most important goal of the federal government is the comprehensive education of every single citizen, right, in the science of government. Now, that's shocking. And it's the goal of the government itself was to educate the citizens, right, in the science of government. Now, why? Because we relied on the citizens to do sense making. And the citizens can do sense making if they can actually look at the issues, understand them, right? Get a really deep sense of them, and then bring their set of values to bear, their shared values to bear, to actually evaluate, right? You need values to evaluate, to discern, and to make decisions. Okay, now I want to say something very dramatic. That reality, which was the reality of early democracy, no longer exists. It's been completely obliterated by modernity. And we now live in a world in which voters have pretty much no idea what they're voting on. We've come to a world in which, number one, the issues are so complex, right? Metamodernism calls them hyperobjects. Hyperobjects means there's so much interlocking complexity. There's so much cascading causation. There's so much interconnectivity between sets of highly complex issues that only a very, very, very small cadre of experts can understand what's happening. And there's actually different cadres of experts that actually disagree with each other on the major issues of economics, and the major issues of artificial intelligence, and the major issues of how healthcare should be structured, and the major issues of how defense, right, should be related to social investment, right, et cetera, right? And as every major issue here is so sophisticated. And Richard Dawkins, when he, the famous evolutionary biologist, when he went to vote, right, about whether Great Britain should stay in the European Common Union or leave, that was called the Brexit vote in Great Britain, he said this is absurd, right? The level of complex issues involved in the Brexit vote are way beyond my understanding, right? The economics, the monetary flows. Why am I voting on this? We actually have a new situation where, number one, voters don't actually understand the issues. So we're asking people to vote on that which they fundamentally don't understand, right? And the understanding of those issues is hijacked by the nature of necessity by groups of experts who fundamentally disagree with each other and are, in the last 15 years, unable to create virtually any sort of common ground in democracies around the world. So we live in a moment of increased polarization between experts, right? And what it would take for an individual human being to wade their way through the available information, to be able to vote in a serious way, is actually not available to the average human being. So why are we voting? What is democracy doing? So that's number one. It's a big deal, right? Number two, right? The key issues that democracy itself would need to vote on are no longer voted on by democracy, right? So for example, how many people who are here voted on the internet? Who voted on the internet? Whether we should have an internet, what kind of internet it should be, how the internet should be structured. How many people here? I mean, we all vote, right? I think pretty much everyone here, almost everyone, not everyone. Most people here live in democracy, not everyone. We got some people from Singapore, right, and from some other places. But how many people here voted on the internet? Nobody. How many people here are voting on, how we should handle artificial intelligence? One of the most essential issues of our day. Who's voting on artificial intelligence? Anybody? No. The COVID-19, right, pandemic was now 90% chance caused by gain of function research done in partnership between the United States and China. And we're not sure how the virus exploded. Did it explode? But it's pretty clear today that it didn't explode just through someone eating a bat in Wuhan, China. It's pretty clear that it was actually, the virus was developed intentionally by what's called gain of function research. What we're not sure of is, did it actually get released accidentally, or was it released intentionally? Right? It's unclear, probably accidentally, but not clear. No, how many people here voted on gain of function research? Who here voted on whether we should be doing gain of function research, which means intentionally creating viruses in order to then vaccinate them, which is a very controversial form of research. And there's enormous financial incentives that are driving that research. How many people actually voted on that here? Nobody. You begin to understand what I'm saying? The key issues of our day are not being voted on at all in any sense, shape, or form. What does that mean? So that's number two. Number three, and this is big. When we vote today, we vote within the context of our nation state. America, Holland, France, right? Great Britain, right? Et cetera, around the world, right? Africa, Asia, right? The different democracies vote. But what democracies are voting on today are actually not the fundamental issues that actually challenge us, that threaten our existence, and that challenge our very, very existential reality, our very being on the planet. The issues we vote on are not the issues that are going to cause catastrophic risk, meaning massive unnecessary suffering of enormous intensity, right, to the least privileged among us. And they're not the issues that are going to cause existential risk, which is the end of the future, right, the obliteration of the future. Because actually, we're not in a world today in which nation states actually are controlling the future of the planet. The future of the planet is controlled or determined by actually a set of interlocking issues which can only be addressed, whether it's climate change, whether it's control of rogue terrorist nuclear threats, whether it's peak phosphorus, whether it's dead zones in the oceans, whether it's artificial intelligence, whether it's techno-feudalism that we've talked about extensively this year, right? Whether it's dealing with an international refugee crisis of insane proportion, right? None of those issues are local. Does everyone get that? None of those issues are local issues. All of those issues, a pandemic, number 10, a pandemic. There's a pandemic, right, in Wuhan. 100 years ago, that would have been a local issue, not Chinese, in a very particular local province of China. But because we live in an interconnected world, which maximizes efficiency, right, over health and safety and wholeness with jet travel and instant mobility, right, we actually, that bug in Wuhan, that virus in Wuhan became a pandemic instantaneously. And in order to deal with it effectively, right, we needed global coherence. And by not having global coherence, we actually increased the death threat by the second and third order cascading effects of the pandemic, closing down whole areas, right, to jet travel. So therefore, you couldn't actually provide agricultural needs. So therefore, you're causing, right, cascading starvation for tens of millions of people, right, and killing more people through the side order, second and third order effects of COVID than COVID itself. That's just one example. So in other words, we live in a global world, and the nature of the technologies that have been developed in the last 120 years have made, right, local decisions essentially irrelevant to the catastrophic and existential risks that we face. So we can only, right, affect decisions by having a genuine degree of global coherence. Does everyone get that? How many people get? How many people are tracking here? Without global coherence, you can't address issues. So nation states, right, actually can't vote, right, on the most essential issues. So not only are nation states not voting themselves on the local expressions of the essential issues, but nation states can't deal with the essential issues. So voting in a nation state is all but irrelevant, right? The only thing we can do is, right, create global coherence in order to do shared sense making between the nation states all around the world. Is everyone following that? If we can't do shared sense making between the nation states around the world, we can't actually generate global coherence. And if we can't generate global coherence, we can't create, right, global action. Is everyone tracking that? Right? That's why we're living in what we might call global action paralysis. There's both global action paralysis, number one, and number two, there's global action confusion. So either we're paralyzed, right, or we're acting in confused ways. Both of those happened, by the way, during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, what's the source of the global action paralysis, right, and the global action confusion, right? A breakdown in global coherence. What's a better way to say that? So a better way to say that is there's a breakdown in global intimacy, or what we've called here, right, a global intimacy disorder. There's a global intimacy disorder because, now stay close, because intimacy means, what does intimacy mean? Intimacy means, intimacy equals, let's do an equation. Intimacy equals shared identity. There's a sense of shared identity plus mutuality of recognition, we recognize each other, plus mutuality of pathos, we feel each other, plus mutuality of value, where we have a shared grammar of value, plus mutuality of purpose. Now, let's see if we can get that. Let's see if we can get that in the chat box. What does intimacy mean? Intimacy means something. There's an intimacy equation. And the intimacy equation is the new equation of the new Constitution of the Declaration of Interdependence that our code is talking about. Okay, so let's get the intimacy equation. Then we're going to go back to our code. Here's the intimacy equation. Maybe someone can grab it in the chat box. Intimacy equals shared identity plus mutuality of recognition plus mutuality of pathos. Let's add to what Jackie wrote. Thank you, Jackie. Plus mutuality of value, right? Plus mutuality of purpose. Let's see if we can get it down. I'm going to ask anybody to join me, see if we can get it down. Let's do it one more time. Let's get it from the beginning. Intimacy equals slow, shared identity plus mutuality of recognition plus mutuality of purpose plus mutuality of value plus mutuality, right? That you begin to get it? What does that mean? So if we don't have shared identity, if we only have identity as a nation state, we don't have shared identity. We have to have an identity. Our identity has to be, I'm a global citizen. I'm world-centric. I'm not just ethnocentric, I'm world-centric, right? And I have shared purpose, meaning I don't just act for my own sake. I don't just act for my family. I don't just act for my nation. I act for the sake of the whole. Does everyone get that? I act for the sake of the whole. We recognize each other as what? We recognize each other as global citizens. One. Two is we feel each other. So when in Tigray, right, in Ethiopia, right, we're threatened when 2 hospitals are down, right, and we're threatened with mass starvation because the war is actually directly affecting the ability. It's knocked out 2 bridges in the last week, right, and we're unable to actually stock our hospitals and get medical personnel right where they need to be. And so we're worried now about tens of thousands of people actually starving this week in Tigray, Ethiopia, right? We recognize those people. We actually recognize them. It's not we get off the One Mtn podcast, right? And we're done. We go home. We actually recognize that in Tigray, in this moment, there's massive suffering, and we actually put our attention, we place our attention there. That's mutuality of recognition. Mutuality of pathos, we feel it. And we raise a hue and a cry. And it's not okay. And I can't actually go about my day when that's happening right in Tigray, right in Ethiopia. Can't do it. I can't do it when boats of refugees are sinking all over the Mediterranean Sea. And there's no countries in Europe who are willing to organize and take those people in. We can't do it. We have mutuality of pathos. We feel each other. Because we have a shared grammar of value, we have mutuality of value. And as global citizens, we have the shared grammar of value. That which unites us is greater than that which divides us. And we have mutuality of purpose. We have a shared purpose, right, in creating, right, a world more beautiful than you can possibly imagine. In creating a world, right, that's unimaginably gorgeous, in which we're participating together in the evolution of love. Okay? That's what we need. That's where we're going. Okay, none of that is available through only a nation state. Now let me go one step further. Okay, let's take this one step further. So all our problems are global, not local. 1. 2, in order to solve them, we need global coherence. Now, how do you get coherence in a couple? How do you get coherence in an organization? How do you get coherence in an organization? Let's just take a couple for a second. How do you get coherence in a couple? Whether it's 2 friends, whether it's a husband and a wife, whether it's a brother and sister, whether it's a father and a son, a father and a daughter, right? Any couple. How do you get coherence? You get coherence in a couple when there's a sense of shared identity, number 1. Number 2, there's a sense of shared intimacy. There's a shared value, right? There's a shared story. And that shared story is based on, right, a shared value. And so therefore, in that couple, you have the capacity to do shared sense making. Does everyone get that? So you need intimacy, right? Only intimacy in a couple, which means shared identity based on shared value, right? Based on mutuality of recognition, based on mutuality of purpose, right? Mutuality of pathos, we can feel each other. So we begin to have a shared story. So what we need today is a shared story. We need a common story. If we don't have a common story, if we don't realize that we're actually interdependent, if we each declare our independence, we don't realize we're actually interdependent. We're actually interlocking with each other. Actually, there's no such thing as an individual who lives independently of everything. Yes, there's individuated unique selves, but unique selves are unique expressions of the entire field. We're unique selves who are expressions of true self, and true self is the interdependent field of consciousness, the interdependent field of cascading economic factors, the interdependent field of the plankton, right, at the base of the ocean, right, that actually allow us to breathe and live, and the insects, right, deep in the soil, without which we wouldn't be alive, and the dead zones in the ocean, right, that need to be healed in order for the biosphere to sustain us. It's all one interconnected unit, and we're interconnected, interdependent with each other. So therefore, we need a shared constitution. We need a Declaration of Interdependence because you can't create global coherence without global intimacy. And intimacy comes from a shared story, right? And without a shared story, without a shared sense of identity, you can't actually create shared purpose. Without global coherence, without healing the global intimacy disorder, right, we can't create global coherence. Does everyone get that? Every problem in the world today, let me say it one last way. Every single problem in the world today is an issue of requires global coordination. Co-ordination. So in order to have coordination, we need to be coordinated. And ordinated means we're headed in the same direction. We need ordinating values. We need shared ordinating values. That's what we call here first values and first principles. Now, they're not unchanging. They're evolving first values and first principles, but they have to be first values and first principles that are ontologies. That's why we say we're ontological activists. And by ontology, we mean it's for real. There's a shared grammar of value that brings us all together. In other words, in the world today, the challenges of the world with exponential technology, number one, with the fragility, as Nassim Taleb points out, of an interconnected world where the supply chains break down in any second, right? With the experience of exponential technology, meaning technology that builds on itself, like the algorithm of Facebook builds on itself, right, to maximize your time online, therefore generates massive negativity, right, because it's exponential, right? The technology itself is developing better and better algorithms, right, to accomplish the goal of the technology, right? So all of our softwares and hardwares today are exponential, meaning building more and more sophisticated weapons, which are easier and easier to make. CRISPR technologies, more and more widely distributed. We have exponential technologies. So we never had exponential technologies. The first exponential technology was nuclear weapons, but nuclear weapons were owned by essentially two states, and it was hard to get uranium. And so we could monitor that. Now we have exponential technologies widely distributed among non-state actors who don't have a shared code of honor, who don't have a shared code of noble duty, who don't have a shared vision of responsibility. Did you get that? Who don't have the capacity to do sense making, right? Because the issues are hyper objects and too complex, and because there's not a shared sense of value. So in order to actually enter into, right, the world as we know it today, right, in which we have global issues, which require global coherence, we need to heal the global intimacy disorder. We heal the global intimacy disorder by creating a shared grammar of value that we're all on board with. Within that shared grammar of value, there can be massive diversity in different religions and different systems and a cacophony, right? A polarity, right, of different instruments. But we've got to be playing the same music, right? The same score. Now, there can be lots of jazz movements in the score, but we got to be playing music together. We got to recognize it as music. We got to recognize it as intrinsically valuable, because you can't solve any issue of global coordination without shared sense making. You can't have shared sense making without shared identity and a shared grammar of value. Wow. So we need not just a Declaration of Independence. We need a Declaration of Interdependence. So let's look at the code. We need a new Declaration of Interdependence. Together, we need a new Declaration of Independence, meaning our unique instruments in the symphony, together with a new Declaration of Interdependence. We're not just created equal. We each have a contribution to make. We're each creative. We're each irreducibly unique. But that uniqueness has to play together, right, in a shared symphony. We're not separate, we're unique. And my uniqueness is a unique expression of the interdependent reality in which we all live. So it's not enough to do what the Founding Fathers did. The Founding Fathers stood for the democratization of governance. But the democratization of governance doesn't work unless you actually move towards a democratization of enlightenment. That's huge. And that's what we've been talking about for the last 10 years. And this is what I've shared for the last 10 years with everyone who would listen, and what Barbara shared in her own language. We need to move from the democratization of governance to the democratization of enlightenment. Now, that doesn't mean that every person is going to be sitting on a mountain, right, reciting Om or chanting or doing, Rumi Sufi practices. Or no, what it means is that every person has an experience of identity where I know that I act, right, in ways that are omniconsiderate, right, for the sake of the whole. The enlightened person is demarcated by two experiences. One, I experience the whole as living in me. Two, I act for the sake of the whole. I act in ways which are omniconsiderate. Because if I don't act in ways that are omniconsiderate, we act in ways that are cumulatively omnidestructive. That's a big deal. So this is the Declaration of Interdependence, right? Which is based on the realization I don't exist without the whole. I am not anyone independent of everyone. I'm not anything independent of everything. That doesn't mean we go to totalitarianism. That doesn't mean that I disappear. No, I'm an irreducibly unique expression of that everything. I'm uniquely creative, right? We're all created equal, and I've got an irreducibly unique gift to give, as does every nation. But we have to have a shared grammar of value in order to do global coordination based on ordinating values. So what we need to insist on is a new renaissance. We need a new renaissance. We need a new renaissance of shared values. We need a universal grammar of value. And those values have to be based on first principles and first values that are innate and intrinsic to cosmos. It's no longer enough to be a nation state. And I want to say something dramatic. I think we should redefine how voting works. Right? Voting has got to work in a way in which you can't have rights without responsibilities. You can't have the right to vote without making a commitment to get educated and what it means and what the issues mean. And so we need to just create new structures of education, and voters need to step in, and we need to be able to move beyond polarization. And imagine this. Imagine if in order to vote, you have to get educated. The same way in order to drive, you got to train in driving. In order to become a physicist, you got to train in physics. What did George Washington say? The single most important job of the government is to educate the citizenry in the science of government. What did they say, Benjamin Franklin? You've got a republic if you can keep it. We live in a world in which, according to most surveys around the world, millennials think that democracy is less and less valuable. Democracy in the last 10 years is less valued than it ever was in the world. China is this emerging autocracy. It's doing long-term planning. The United States, Holland, Belgium, right? We're caught in polarization, short-term governments, right? Win-lose metrics without an overarching vision. Now, China's vision is world domination, as the Chinese Communist Party says very clearly. If the democracies don't come together and articulate a universal grammar of value, which is an alternative, right, to the Chinese power grab, to the Hungarian power grab, right, to Putin and his successors' power grab, right, and they're planning long-term based on autocracies that are functioning more and more effectively, and democracies are mired down in polarization without an ability to actually act coherently together. What's going to happen? What's going to happen is we're going to give up the future. This is our moment. We're the founding fathers. We're the founding mothers. The evolutionary impulse is awake and alive in us. It's time to move, right, from the democratization of governance, not to leave it behind, but to invest the democratization of governance with the democratization of enlightenment. And minimally, that means the ability of a citizen to think for the sake of the whole, to feel the whole in me, to move beyond my egocentric consciousness, to move beyond my ethnocentric consciousness, to begin to step into a genuine world-centric, a genuine cosmocentric consciousness, where I actually experience myself as evolution. I am the universe coming alive. Evolution's awake and alive in me. I'm a unique configuration of the evolutionary impulse, and I actually act as evolution itself. That's where we are today. The same force that lived the evolutionary impulse that moved the founding fathers now is to move us as the founding fathers and mothers of a global grammar of value, healing the global intimacy disorder by actually articulating a new story. I'm going to tell you one last thing. This is shocking. In brain science, you can't outdo the traumas of yesterday, right? Once there's an imprint from trauma in the brain, there's an indelibility that can barely be changed. But here's what you can do in the brain. And the brain is a self-organizing system, and the brain operates the same way the universe does. The brain and the universe are actually reflections of each other, whether it's the veins on a leaf, or whether it's the neurons in the brain, or whether it's the movements of the universe, or whether it's societies, right? Everything operates according to a set of first principles and first values. So here's what's true in brain science, and it's always true. You can't undo the trauma of yesterday. What you can do is you can create new synapses. You can create new patterns of connection. You can create new configurations of intimacy. We heal the global intimacy disorder by creating new configurations of intimacy. Wow. And a new configuration of intimacy means a new way of doing democracy, right? It means telling a new story. The most powerful thing we can do from the perspective of brain science, from the perspective of the social challenge of today, is to actually tell a new common story based on a universal grammar of value. That's the move. That's the invitation. Oh my God. So we went a little longer than usual, so I apologize for that. We haven't done this in a while, but I really wanted, with your permission, is that okay, everyone? To give you a 4th of July gift, right? Like a total gift to actually really get this in a deep way, okay? So let's go directly right now in this very second, right, into Leonard Cohen. We're going to pray, and then we're going to hear about the festival, and we're going to close with Krista. And I'm going to ask everyone if you can give us a 4th of July gift to stay with us for like 7 or 8 more minutes, and let's blow this open to directly into, right, this very second, Leonard Cohen. Let's kind of feel this together, and then let's pray. Let's take this into the festival, and let's take this into outrageous acts of love. We're telling the new story together. We're the founding fathers and mothers. We've just declared today, right, a declaration of interdependence, a declaration of global intimacy.
Now I've heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do ya? It goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor, major, the baffled king composing hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Oh my God. So let's go to the chat box and let's pray like we've never prayed before. We're going to just like pour it in and let's pray for a brand new day, right? For a new vision, right? We brought it all together today. So let's just follow the prayers, right? Oh my God, Mosai, I love these angels, right? Prayer. Terry, you're here. I'm so glad you got here, Terry. I know you're at a family reunion. I pray that I live, that I am evolution. Timothy Paul, happy birthday. I pray to be a new renaissance of outrageous love, right, in every way. Jacqueline, right, Lady J, I pray that we may together create a new world, a new global coherence for all the children born and unborn. Shanti, right, I pray for the alignment between the new global shared story and the evolved consciousness, right, of the ultimate universe where love and freedom meet intimately, right? Oots, I pray, right, for me, for more self-calming capability. Gorgeous Vashti, right? I pray for all citizens of the world align with the democratization, right, of enlightenment. Enoch, I pray for the new story to be heard all over the world. David, I pray for our culture to honor the biosphere and all the indigenous wisdom in the world. Jackie, I pray that we take massive, inspired, right, action, right, to see the new story. I pray, right, Krista Josepha, for a planetary, this is our basic, for a planetary awakening and love through unique self-symphonies, which is who we are. Right, Shati, I pray to be together with you in an updated, right, as the founding mother. Joycey could not do anything without you. Praying for a new story for all to hear and understand. Robert, welcome. I pray for our growing coherence. Suzette, I pray for the Declaration of Interdependence. Right? Rose Ann, I pray to share the new story of the Declaration. Ugas, right? Myra Bennett, right? Oh my God, Jamie, Xochitl, right? Margie, Arthur, right? Suzanne, Kathy, right? Benjamin, G, Claire, right? Let's take these prayers, let's weave them together, and let's literally lift them to the sky. Friends, I know we're in a crazy day, so I'm just gonna say one last thing, and I'm gonna turn it to Kristen, to Claire, right? Last thing, right? Have you guys noticed all the crazy stuff about UFOs in the world, right? Well, there's been UFO information for a very long time, but it's gotten very, very serious and very validated, right? It's always been validated, but it's gone into the mainstream. Let me just ask you a question. If you get the nature of reality, that we live in an intimate universe in which everything's interconnected, right? How could it be that we're a separate self-civilization? It's completely impossible. We can't be a separate self. Actually, our sense of being independent, just like we're an independent separate self, so we look at ourselves as an independent, a Declaration of independent solar system, an independent planet. But of course, that's not true. Of course, the universe is an interconnected set of interlocking wholes that operates according to certain principles. And our solar system is in a world that always self-replicates. It's one of the principles, right, of science, self-replication. We're an expression of a larger system. But in order for us to engage, right, that larger system, we've got to come and bring a unique gift. And the unique gift that we have to give is our first principles and first values. It's our ability to create a planetary civilization, right, that actually can be filled with unique self-instruments, filled with different religions and different nations, but actually is living a kind of global intimacy, becomes a model, right? That is a strange attractor that invites conversation with other civilizations. We're moving into a different world, friends. The world we live in now, that we recognize now, it's an old world. It's a beautiful world. It's given us great gifts. But we're here, right, to engage in the next step. We're here to actually articulate. We're the founding fathers and mothers. We're ready to play a larger game, right? It's not just about a planetary civilization. We need to become a planetary civilization so we can actually act within what's going to ultimately be a multi-planetary civilization. But what's going to hold that together, the coherence of the whole thing, right, is a shared story of value, right? A shared story of intimacy, a larger shared identity. That's where we're going. Right? It's a glorious future, but it's one that we have to take hold of and stop business as usual. And to do that, we got to come together, and we're going to do a festival. We're going to study, right? Join One Mountain, right? Let's make this revolution real. Oh my God, happy independence, happy interdependence, everyone, right? For every human being on the planet. And I turn to you, Kristen, you guide us to who's speaking next. I believe Shahati's going to talk to us about the festival. Here we go. Shahati, take us inside.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow. It's coming so together. It's also You know, the festival is many things. One thing, it's not casual. Take, for instance, the music group you saw. Like, I met Marc 12 years ago and I studied with them already. And then we started to study with Marc. So each year is for us some kind, the festival is a benchmark. Where are we? Where is the story? How is my life in the day-to-day activities as an outrageous lover? What's my work? What's my contribution? So we need you. We need you. And as Christina in the start said, we are an evolutionary communion. That's the festival together with One Mtn. And more, this is our life. This is our life. This is the world we are creating for our future generations to be living in a world that works for all. And I want to invite you, sign up, join with us the 31st of July until August 4. Let's be updated 2021, founding fathers and founding mothers together. Krista.
Yes, beautiful, Shahad. Thank you for that wonderful invitation to the Outrageous Love Festival and the invitation of today to be outrageous lovers, to commit those outrageous acts of love. Marc shared in the beginning that all over the world, billions of acts of love are happening all the time. But who is making those happen? We are. So feel that invitation, but also the commitment, because it's one thing to be here and to receive this wonderful blessing, this beautiful, beautiful transmission. But it's a whole next step to actually say yes to that, to embody that, to feel that outrageous love moving in you, as you, and through you, and to really go into your week committing those outrageous acts of love. So that is my and our invitation to each other. And one of the outrageous acts of love that you can commit is to actually become a part of this revolution, to step in and become a member of One Mtn, to support all the work that we are doing here. We are receiving this transmission and these teachings from Dr. Marc Gafni totally for free here every week. We are creating beautiful clips from those. We are creating articles and blog posts, and we're even in the process of publishing books from the evolutionary sermons and the evolutionary love codes. But we really need all of our help to make all of this happen and to take it to the next level. So if you're new here and you're not yet a member, I invite you to become a member. But also if you are already a member, just feel into your heart, how much more of yourself are you able to give? How much more are you able and willing to say yes to really create this world together, to really make it happen together? So I want to show you our beautiful websites to show you how you can actually become a part of this. It's onemtnmanypaths.org. And like I said, if you are new here or watching on Facebook or YouTube, make sure that you sign up here to get all the clips, all the free, beautiful content. You can register here, and every Tuesday we send out amazing gifts to you. And if you click here on top on membership, that's where you will find all the information about what it means to become a member. And you can see that you can choose your own contribution. We really want to make all of this valuable information available to anyone. But we, of course, encourage everyone to give as much as possible. You can also make a one-time donation here if you prefer to do that. But as a member of One Mtn, you also get access to these 9 courses. All of these courses were recorded at the Outrageous Love Festival. So that is 7 days of deep dives into all these different aspects of the Dharma that enables you to really deeply, deeply study this and make this Dharma your own. So I think that is a no-brainer. Just go to the website right after, onemtnmanypaths.org, and sign up to become a member. And now we bring everyone on for our goodbyes. And I want to invite all of you to start your video camera so we can actually see each other and we can see how we are a unique self-symphony here together. And we're going to play a song, Can You Feel That Brand New Day? So let's celebrate that Declaration of Interdependence together, and let's move our bodies, see each other, dance together. Christina Emelong, I give it to you to start the music. Thank you so much.
around.